So this worksheet I've handed out to you is a reflective statements exercise. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do simple reflections at first, just for a few minutes, and then we're going to get into the more fun ones, I think. So a simple reflection is basically you're just paraphrasing back what you've heard. You can use some of the client's words, but you can use your own words as well. So for these first four, it says you have the target behavior, drinking, weight management, parenting work. I want you to write a simple reflection. Now the best reflections do not have to be long to be effective. We obviously saw in the demonstration that Mike did, those reflections were fairly long, and sometimes that is necessary and effective. But for our purposes of wellness coaching, they really don't have to be long and elaborate and drawn out, okay? So keep it to one sentence. Keep it to a statement. And just do the first four on this page.
So we can't ask a question?
Nope. No questions. No open-ended questions. Just reflective statements. Simple.
Which page is that you have to be
Um,
What's the name of what is it?
yeah, it doesn't have a name on it.
What's the first thing that you see on it?
Target behavior drinking. A1. The other one I have does have a title. It's called Forward Moving.
Okay.
Do you have that one too?
Sure do.
Yes.
Okay, let's go over these, see what you have. So, any volunteers? I'll read this statement and you can reflect back. Kelly, let's have you go.
The first one's not the best.
Oh, that's okay. You can improve then. I'm not sure I'm concerned about it, but I do wonder sometimes if I'm drinking too much.
So I put, your drinking doesn't trouble you, but you are wondering if how much you are drinking is a problem.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah, right. That's really good.
I was going to ask if someone had a better one. Anyone? Let's hear one more. Okay, I'll read the statement. I'm not sure I'm concerned about it, but I do wonder sometimes if I'm drinking too much.
Sometimes you think you may be drinking too much, but right now it doesn't necessarily concern you.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, let's move on. Who wants to do this next one? Weight management. Okay, Stacey. I've tried losing weight more times than I can remember.
So it sounds like losing weight has been important to you for a long time.
I like it. Yeah. I like that you recognized a feeling or a need there. That it's important. I'm not just doing this for fun. There's a reason, and I really like how you drew that out. That's nice. Okay, who else wants to see what they wrote for that one? Someone who hasn't spoken today. Lindsay, do you want to go?
Sure. I just said you've tried multiple times in the past to lose weight and haven't had a very good experience.
Okay. And I think that one, Lindsay, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a simple or a stabilizing one. You jumped off the cliff a little bit. That's okay. It's actually a very good one. It's just not a simple stabilizing. Do you understand maybe why it's not? What part of it is not?
Probably implying that it was a bad experience.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually a perfect implication from what we know about it, but that's more of that forward moving, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But good idea. Okay, let's move on. We got two more. Target behavior, parenting. Who wants to do this one? Lisa. I don't want my daughter to have the same kind of life I've had.
Tell me what your life was like.
Okay, question.
No, statement.
Period. Well, how does that sound though? Tell me what your life was like.
Well, I mean, it's gonna give an open. Okay, I have a
No. And you're perfectly fine. It's not a bad question. Questions are totally part of this process, especially that open-ended one. But it's not necessarily a reflection. And it's always good to do a reflection before a question. Why?
So you know what they're saying. So they know you know.
Yeah, so they know that you know. You get me. You're understanding me. You're expressing empathy. So now when you want to know more, I'm like, cool, because they're already kind of with me. So we always do the reflective statement and then a question.
So you want your daughter to have a better life than yours.
Perfect.
Is that an assumption, though?
No. If it is, they'll let you know. Okay, so here's something about reflective statements. We can do something that like Lisa just did that is maybe assumption if we're just genuinely interested in that person's life. If we're trying to make assumptions, to be manipulative, and to get out of them what we want, then it's not a good idea. But if you are recognizing when that person says something that there is a need there, and you're recognizing that and you're expressing back that to them, that's perfect.
Right.
And I would say that's probably a little bit more of a forward-moving one. Forward-moving ones are way more fun, though, so that's okay.
Oh, good.
Okay, let's do one more on this one. Who would like to read their statement? Anyone? Someone who hasn't read a reflective statement today. You all know who you are. Okay, I'll call on someone. Daniel. I don't want my daughter to have the same kind of life I've had.
Your daughter is having similar experiences that you've had.
Okay. How, I like it. I'd say one other thing. I'd say you feel like your daughter might be having similar experiences. Do you see how that just subtly changes it? Softens it just a little.
Validates the feeling.
Yeah, exactly. But you got right to what's going on, right? I mean, that's what they're worried about. The only reason a person would say, I don't want my daughter to have is because they feel like right now they're having them. And they're really worried. So that was really, really good. Nice. Okay, let's do the last one. Work. Who wants to do this one? Gail, do you want to do yours?
It's very hard for you to think about work.
Yeah, I'm in too much pain to even think about working. It's very hard for you. That was a very good, very simple, stabilizing, reflective statement. Okay, Alexis, do you want to do yours?
Sure. I think I kind of said too much.
That's okay. Let's do it. We'll just talk about it. You're fine. I'm going to read the statement, then you read what you have. I'm in too much pain to even think about working.
So I'm feeling from what you're saying that you're in too much pain to even think about working. Like
No, you're okay.
Said what?
Yeah, you rephrased it. You said it, but you're fine.
So,
So would you like to do that differently?
well, yeah, but I'm not quite sure how. Like, so she says, I'm in too much pain to even think about working. So questions just come into my mind. Like,
Okay, so you're just
like,
really.
I'm kind of,
It's easy for you to jump to the questions. Tell me more. What's going on?
instead of, otherwise I think of like rephrasing, because I don't know, like reflecting seems to just say what she said again.
Okay,
You know?
so and this is. I'm glad you brought this up because with reflections we can get away with a little parroting, but not too much.
Yeah.
Because that will sound.
Like, yeah, I just said that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thank you. That'll be like, you just said that. So, does anyone have an explanation or can help Alexis with our little problem here? Kelly?
I think it's easy to get stuck into saying the same because reflective listening doesn't necessarily come natural. So what I, in my head, say, it sounds like you're saying this, and I come up with a different phrase. So what I put is, it sounds like your pain is severe. So I don't know if that.
Yeah. It sounds like your pain is severe. So you don't, like with a simple reflection or reflective statement, you don't have to reflect the whole thing necessarily. The whole is, I mean, you could say it sounds like your pain is so severe you can't even think about working. Okay? So you just change the words a little bit. You actually amplified the emotion, right? She said, I'm in too much pain, and Kelly went severe.
Okay.
You know? So let's move on to the forward moving, because in some ways they're a little bit easier than the stabilizing one. Lisa?
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
I'm wondering how this is going to get them to open up more, because when you reflect back, aren't they going to say, yeah, instead of talking more? You know, like if somebody said, you want your daughter to have a better life than yours, I'd be like, yes.
And then you go, tell me more.
Right, why can't we just say,
Why can't we just say, tell me more?
I mean, tell me more so much. It's fine. You're getting to the root of the issue, right? I mean,
You are, but what is the purpose of reflective statements?
at this moment, I don't know.
Okay. And that's okay. And it's hopefully it'll come together for you. And maybe I don't even need to repeat it because it sounds like you need to experience a little bit. But reflective statements, our purpose is to build trust and rapport. And people will trust and feel connected to us when they go, she or he understands me. And we do that through reflective statements. Questions are part of expressing empathy and can be part of expressing a level of understanding, but not in the way a simple reflective statement does or even a forward-moving one. Okay. Because a question, what does a question immediately sound like? I want to solve your problem. I want more information. That's really interesting to me. I'm fascinated by that, but I haven't really expressed to you that I just heard what you're saying. And the only way you can truly express to someone that you understand is through some type of communication. And a lot of times we do that, yeah. But we can do better, and we do better through reflective statements. So Lisa, I did them all through our coaching with you.
I didn't even know.
Yeah. That's because we are just highlighting. This exercise is just highlighting reflective statements. We are pulling it out of a whole conversation. So you get comfortable with them and you know what they're all about and can do them.
And you were saying with the dilemma with the drug
Mhm.
earlier, you were saying that you use reflective statements a lot more if it's like a forced thing, like if
Longer
somebody's
ones.
in trouble and they have to see.
Longer ones, and they're more belabored.
Right. So if we're talking with a friend and we want to be able to coach them without, not
Mhm.
for assignments, not for, but just to help them or whatever, and we already have that trust that's built, we don't necessarily have to use these so much.
Well, what if you hear them wrong? I think
They'll correct you because you have you have trust built, and they can say like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Maybe. I don't know.
But how will they say that's not what I'm saying if you're just asking a question?
I feel like I'd have a hard time spitting out some of these phrases that
Okay, because they feel contrived to you.
they do.
They feel
I
contrived,
don't
and
mean
they
to be
feel.
the troublemaker
Okay.
in here.
No,
Like,
you're not. You're not.
I
You're not.
just- like, I'd be
That
like, oh my gosh,
troublemaker.
Because when we were reading these, I was thinking like, what would I say? And I don't want to have that long weird pause.
So did you see what Hanley just did just then?
Well, she
See,
did
with
twice.
Lisa,
Twice.
she said, how did she respond to you just now, Lisa? When you just said what you just said, what did Hanley just say in response to you? She said because they feel contrived to you, right? Did you hear her say that?
You did, because you went yes.
You did.
That's how they feel.
And what she did was she reflected back to you in a way that did that feel contrived how she reflected to you? So you didn't even notice what she was doing, did you? And she may not have known.
But do you think it's
That's
because maybe it comes natural from all the years of practice?
Okay, we'll move on this and keep asking your questions, but I think if we move on, some things will be clarified. So you opened up more to me and felt safe because I said because they feel contrived, and you went in your head in a matter of like half a second, you went, oh, she gets where I'm coming from. So I'm going to continue to proceed even though I feel like I'm being a troublemaker.
Right.
Okay? So that's how we did it in a very short matter of time. Now, let's move on to the forward reflecting ones, because the simple ones can start to feel kind of contrived and they aren't as fun anymore. Okay? And then keep those questions coming, Lisa, and we'll see if some of these things get cleared up or maybe not. Okay. So here's a quick handout. The top just says what a simple reflection is, and then the bottom part talks about what our forward moving ones are all about. And I will say, coaching is not fun unless you use these. But they do take a little bit more skill. Okay, do we need any more? Did everyone get one? Yes.
Just about what we were talking
Yeah.
about. With the reflective statements,
Uh-huh.
or listening, I think what's hard for me is for me to reflect back what they say. I feel like if I add other words, like they could say, no, that's not what I said. This is what I said. And
Okay.
so like it's scary for me.
Okay.
So maybe
Great point. So let's talk about that one. That one is, that's the continuing the paragraph. Okay? And that one's actually really fun because that person, it is perfectly fine to get a reflection wrong. Especially if while you express it, your tone is full of empathy and a desire to understand. So if you were to say, like what was yours, Daniel, that first one that you read, the one that you read?
Your daughter is having similar experiences you have.
Okay. So that is kind of continuing the paragraph, right?
Well, that's assuming.
That's assuming. But based on our conversation, it's fine. And so that person can go, yes, actually, exactly. That's exactly what I'm feeling. I'm so scared that she's having the same experiences and I know what it did to me and I'm blah, 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 blah. Or she can say, no, actually, her life is perfectly fine right now. I just worry a lot and I'm worried, and it's perfectly fine. And that person will not, because if you have the trust and rapport and you're being genuine in your statements, it will not matter one bit. And it's actually a great opportunity for them to give you more information and for you to go, oh, now I see where you're coming from. you've had these awful experiences, and your daughter isn't actually, you could actually even amplify, and you're working so hard, because she didn't say that, you're working so hard to make sure your daughter doesn't, but you constantly worry about it still. Tell me more about that. So their problem may not be that their circumstances are such that their daughter is having similar experiences. Their problem may be on their head. Completely different problem, right? I mean, and the things that we would do with that person or suggestions we would make would be completely different. But that's great. Continuing the paragraph, and that's what we call kind of jumping off the cliff a little bit. Nothing wrong with that, okay? It's actually kind of fun too. And a lot of times you can be totally right if you've picked up on the emotion and you've pieced together the beginning of a conversation or whatever. Remember, these are such isolated statements. Okay, so let's just go to the top one. This first one is complex. Forward moving, guiding towards the target. So in our example that Mike and I did, this person, the counselor, was always reflecting the change, the talk for change. So when the druggie, when the employee would say, but I would eventually like to have children. My wife wants them now. Well, he went, oh, ding, ding, ding. This person does have thoughts of having a child. And if they do have a child, they might consider changing. So did you notice that he even brought up, and you have thought about having a baby, even though it was minutes ago that they talked about that. So that was still including a reflection that was guiding us toward our target of eventually not doing drugs, right? So but that was complex because that hadn't been brought up in the previous statement, just that had been brought up a few statements before. So we brought it back in. Okay, paraphrasing, making a guess to unspoken meaning. And maybe that was actually the one that the paraphrasing one, Alexis, was probably what you said, and Daniel, probably what you just did. Okay? Continuing the paragraph is actually a little bit different. Reflection of feeling, a paraphrase that emphasized the emotional dimension through feeling statements. I would say Kelly's was a little bit more like that when she said, the statement was, I'm in too much pain, and Kelly said severe. Doesn't severe just amplify that a little bit? And then that person goes, yeah, because they'll probably feel like everyone's telling them, oh, you're fine, or stop worrying about your pain. And Kelly just said, oh, your pain's severe. And they're like, yeah, it really is. And it gives them permission to actually maybe do something about the pain, or maybe, you know that sometimes we make things worse because we want someone to acknowledge it. We are sicker than we really are, not because we're trying to be manipulative and not because we're trying to get out of something or away with something, but because we don't feel like someone is understanding us, and so we feel like we have to make it bigger to be understood. And once someone is understood, they can actually get to what's really going on. Okay? Okay, and this amplifying emotion is really, really, really a good one. And probably one of the easiest ones to start doing with these forward-moving reflections. Okay, metaphors and similes can be very, very powerful too. Because if you can put a simile or a metaphor to something that someone just said, then they go, because it's kind of sophisticated, right? I mean, that's a little bit more than, so they go, wow, you're really, or people, their learning style may be very visual. And when you put that to a visual term for them, then that can be very powerful for them as well. So your pain is like, or is similar to this, And Kelly, do you have something to fill in there?
No, I was trying to in my head, and your pain is like a river.
Your pain is like a river. Yeah, maybe not quite so good with this one, but you get what we're saying a little bit. Now, don't worry about the simile and the metaphor one right now. Some of you actually, maybe metaphors and similes come easily to you and it'll come naturally, but if it doesn't, don't go there. Okay? Don't be trying to do these. They may become more comical and stress relieving than they are productive, which actually isn't so bad either. Okay, the double-sided is just, double-sided are really, they work really, really well, and they're very common and very present in anyone you're working with. Just like I said earlier in class, we all have these internal conflicts going on, and you want to hold that mirror up to someone and say, and some of these reflections, it is easy to have these phrases in your head. You can either speak them or unspoken, like I tend to say it sounds like, because that is my clue. And that sounds a little contrived and repetitive to people, and that's okay. But if it helps you to say something like that, to get the reflective statement out, it's okay. Or for these double-sided, you can say, on the one hand you feel like this, and on the other hand you feel like this. And it's okay to do some of these little things at the beginning of the reflection that help you organize your thoughts. You don't have to use those phrases, but there's nothing wrong with doing them. Does that make sense? Okay. Amplified, I think, is similar to the reflection of feeling, or you amplify the feeling. So the reflection of feeling would be you just reflect the feeling, and then I guess the amplification would be more like you reflect the feeling and then amplify it. Or if it's not a feeling, it could be a need, it could be just the situation. Someone maybe just described a situation for you, and you amplify it and maybe get a little like on the dramatic side. Don't be way dramatic. But, you know, you kind of get in there with someone, and that feels good too. Okay, continuing the paragraph, anticipating what the client might say next. We heard that a couple of times at the beginning of the demo that Mike and I did, where he said, and you don't think your employer should be worried about your personal life. Or that really ticked you off when you had a random drug test, something like that. So you're kind of continuing the paragraph for them. And doesn't that make you feel understood? Oh yeah, you're exactly right, I do. This guy felt so understood through all this that he went on to heroin. He is really scared about losing his job, but he went on to heroin. I mean, it really does work. He had to clarify that the conversation was confidential, but he really, I mean, and this conversation probably happened 20 minutes, and look where they got through using all these skills. Okay, so what I want you to do is go back to the front of this page and now do forward moving reflections. To the ones you already did, the simple ones, I want you to try them again, and I want you to do more forward moving ones. And you can try any of those things down there. Forward moving in its simplest definition is just doing something with the talk for change that you hear. You're amplifying it, you're reflecting back the emotion, you're just doing something with the change talk that you heard.
So when I hear forward moving, I think then ask a question after the statement, but that's not what you're asking, right?
Mm-mm. No questions. So I'm not sure I'm concerned about it, but I do
So using these down here.
something like that.
Okay.
And the nice thing was like all of them, you can combine them. You know, you can do like a double-sided and then amplify too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think you're going to be very good at amplifying.
Can these be questions too, or are they as well statements?
No questions. Just statements. And if you want, Lisa, you can do your statement and then you can follow it up with a question.
Done.
It's blinking now.
So now you can hear it.
I hear it. It's still blinking.
Yeah, that should be okay. I wonder if when we hooked this up, Tim did something to that.
Okay. Okay, let's go through a quick example for each one of these, and then I want to show you a clip. Okay. Who has a forward-moving reflection for our first target behavior of drinking? Anyone? Okay, good job. I'll read it. I'm not sure I'm concerned about it, but I do wonder sometimes if I'm drinking too much.
It sounds like you show some concern to your alcohol use, but you aren't sure how much is too much.
Yeah. And that was what we call a double-sided. Is that kind of what you're going for?
I don't know.
Yeah. No, and like, honestly, when someone does something like that, I mean, that should immediately let you know, I got a double-sided reflection here. And I was just telling Kelly, you can also combine, you could also do double-sided and then amplify. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Lisa and then
If
Clarissa.
you're seeing a coach for something like that, can't you just make an assumption that they're clearly concerned about their drinking? He says, well, I'm not really sure I'm concerned or not. Well, obviously you are, or you wouldn't have brought it up. That's not how I would phrase it.
How would you phrase it?
Well, I wrote, you're feeling concerned about yourself and your future if you continue drinking too much.
So wouldn't they be like, because they could be seeing you because of like their family thinks they have a drinking problem and they don't really.
But are
Yeah.
they confused about their concern? I mean, that's...
So I like, Lisa, I like what you said, but it sounds a little too abrupt. It sounds like it may be like a second or third reflection.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to go to that cliff or paraphrase or, too quickly. Because remember, they need to know, like if you say that, then they go, no, wait, I didn't tell you I was concerned.
Right.
I said I was just wondering about if I'm concerned. So you may want to stabilize. That's why sometimes we do simple ones first and then we go to the forward moving ones. So we can stabilize the situation. We know that they feel heard and understood, and then go. Okay. A lot of this, there's a lot of feel to it too, with the person you're working with and where you're at in the conversation.
Yeah.
Clarissa?
My statement, can you just tell me if I did this right?
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of
Yeah, for sure.
confused. Sounds like you think you may have it sounds like you think you may have drinking habits that you're not sure if you're comfortable with. Is that
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yes. The only thing is you reflected the last part of the statement, and then the first part you left off.
Okay.
Now, why would that maybe not be a good idea?
Maybe if they don't have a drinking problem?
Because they're still weighing it out, right? You're right. They're definitely concerned that their drinking may be a problem. Exactly what you said. But they're not quite totally there yet. So if you say that, then what you said is, I just heard this part, but I didn't hear that part. That's why you've got to reflect the double-sided emotion that they're feeling. You've got to reflect the conflict that they're hearing. Okay. Okay, let's do one more. Or actually, Okay, let's do that one more for this one. Who wants to do their weight management? Who really likes what they put together? Or who has a question? Anyone?
I'll give you mine.
Okay. I've tried losing weight more times than I can remember.
So nothing has gone right in your attempts at weight loss in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote continuing. I don't know why I wrote continuing.
Say that one more time.
Oh, I was trying to write down which bullet it would fit. I think continuing, that's continuing the paragraph, like making them feel understood almost.
And I think you did a great job of amplification. Say your statement one more time.
So nothing has gone right in your attempts at weight loss in the past.
Yeah, I would say you kind of took it one step forward and then you amplified. Nothing's gone right in your attempts.
So mine is, it could be a question or a statement. It's one of those, you know when you hear somebody and you go, is that a question?
Yeah.
Because it says, I said, so nothing has gone right in your attempts at weight loss in the past.
Yes, I hear what you're saying.
Say
Because
yes
you're
or no.
asking for them. But I went to this whole motivational interviewing certification program, 3 days of intense behavior and intense training. And I would do the same thing you did. And the guy who's like an expert in MI, he'd be like, you said it with the tone of a question, Hannah-Lee. Take it out. You know, and what you're saying, I think there's a fine line. But if we're truly doing a reflective statement in its purity and essence, our tone will not convey a question.
Okay.
But isn't the point of doing a reflective statement is to get them to think, yes, that's what I was saying, or no, I wasn't. So she could say, well, it was successful when I exercised, or no, binging and purging was never successful. Obviously.
Yes, but you can do that without having a tone of a question.
So if you say it in a statement, they could still answer it as if you asked a question.
Well, yeah, they can still agree or disagree. Yeah, definitely. That's a subtle nuance. Don't get too caught up in it. But you don't want all your reflective statements to sound like a question.
You know, people say that to me, like, are you asking me a question? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I am. Do you
Yeah.
want an answer? Yeah.
Okay, good job, you guys. We'll practice a little bit more on these. So we're going to watch a clip. And I'm going to show you 2 different clips, and they both highlight motivational interviewing, okay? And this is in a clinic, a healthcare clinic setting.
Physician assistants all have opportunities to counsel patients about health-related behaviors. As a medical professional, you have a responsibility to talk to your it is not used more and more confrontation.
The chart, I mean, it seems like he's had 6 or 7 of these just in the past year or so. That's really a big problem.
Yeah, it's pretty stressful for both of us. He gets really upset.
Well, one of the primary risk factors for multiple ear infections in kids is actually smoke exposure. Are you smoking?
Yeah, I do smoke, but I don't smoke around him. I try really hard not to smoke around him.
Well, the fact that he's having these ear infections is indicating to me that he is being exposed to smoke. And so, what can you tell me about that?
I don't know. I mean, I try really hard not to smoke around him. I don't smoke in the car. When he's home, I go outside to smoke. I mean, I know it's bad, and I know it's bad for him, so I don't want him to be around it, so I try really hard.
I really need you to quit smoking, both for your health and for Aiden. Did you know smoking around your child is associated not only with ear infections, it could get to the point where you have to put tubes in his ears pretty shortly here, but also things like vitamin C deficiency, cavities, like dental cavities, behavior problems, asthma, other upper respiratory infections. It's really putting him at a lot of risk. In addition to that, kids of smokers end up smoking themselves. Do you want him to grow up to be a smoker?
No, but I don't smoke. I've thought about quitting, but it's really hard, so I just don't know how to do it.
Well, now's the time to quit. It's really gotten to the point where you can't keep smoking. Not only for him, like I said, but also for you. You're putting yourself at risk for lung cancer, for emphysema, for oral cancer, for heart disease, for all kinds of things.
I know. I've heard. People have told me before. I've heard all that. I just don't know how to do it. How am I supposed to quit? It's so hard.
Well, there's all
everybody has problems, right? It's really, really hard.
Well, what can be more important to you than the health of your child?
I don't know.
I really need you to tell me that you're going to quit smoking. This is really important.
I'll go look at all those things and I'll find, I guess I'll try to find something and I'll talk to my doctor about it.
Okay, well, I think you really need to think about this seriously. Like I said, it's really putting yourself and your child in danger.
Okay. Whatever. Okay.
Okay.
By starting the interaction with an accusatory question, watch what happens this time when the provider cues it.
For 10 years, except one.
Well,
It's just me.
Tad recently, and I noticed that you had checked the box that someone's smoking in the home, so I was wondering if you can tell me a little more about that.
Well, it's just me and him, and I do smoke. I try really hard not to smoke around him, but I've been smoking for 10 years, except when I was pregnant with him. But it's so stressful being a single mom and having a full-time job, and so that's why I started smoking again.
You have a lot of things going on, and smoking's kind of a way to relax and de-stress.
Yes, yeah. Some people have a glass of wine, I have a cigarette.
Sure. And it sounds like you're trying not to smoke around him. Why did you make that decision?
I know it's not good for him. I mean, I've read those things about ear infections and asthma and stuff, but other kids have ear infections and their parents don't smoke.
So on the one hand, you're worried about how your smoking might be affecting him, and on the other hand, you're not so sure if it's really the smoking that's causing these problems.
Right, yeah. I mean, he doesn't have asthma. He hasn't had a lot of other problems that his other friends have. So, and I've thought about quitting before in the past, but I just don't see how it's possible right now.
What made you decide to quit smoking when you were pregnant?
Well, he was inside me and we were sharing everything, and I knew that he would get some of that, and I just didn't think I could live with myself if something happened to him.
Right now, though, it feels almost too difficult to even manage or even to try.
Yeah, exactly.
How were you successful when you quit before?
I don't know. I think about it now, I don't even know how I did it. I just did it. You know, I just couldn't imagine like him not being born or going into labor early and him having problems and stuff like that, all the stuff that they talk about with women who smoke. So that was just enough to say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to risk that.
Mm-hmm.
So
the risks were so scary then that you're able to stop, but
yeah.
They don't feel as scary to you now.
No, I mean, we're two separate people, and like I said, I try really hard not to smoke around him. I'm pretty good about that. I don't let other people smoke around him. So
You're doing the best you can do.
yes.
Okay, but it sounds to me too like part of you really does want to quit.
Yeah, I know that I need to, and I keep every new year I say, okay, this year I'm going to quit smoking, but then something happens and it just doesn't.
It's
and
on your
quitting
to-do
doesn't
list,
happen.
it's just not making it to the top.
Yeah.
If you did decide to quit, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not at all confident, you don't think you could do it, and 10 is you feel pretty certain that you could, where do you think you fall right now?
Probably like a 5, kind of in the unsure area. Like I know I've done it before, so I know I can do it, but at the same time, it just seems really hard, and it's not the same situation.
Well, what made you say 5 rather than 2 or 3?
I know all the ways it's bad for me, and I don't want him to grow up thinking that it's okay to smoke. I don't want him to use any kind of, I don't want him to chew or anything like that. So I know I need to, especially before he gets old enough to understand what mommy's doing, but I just don't know if I can do it.
Okay. So it sounds like you have a lot of reasons why you'd like to quit. You have been successful medications you can try.
I don't like medicine.
Okay. There's also a lot of support groups and classes that you can take where you have other people to go through it with you, and sometimes just having that support can be a big part of it, especially for people like you where smoking is such a stress reliever.
That sounds nice, but I'm not sure if I have the time for all that.
Sure, it feels like something that would take up a lot of time and maybe not fit into your life. I wonder if we could talk about some options that might fit into your life.
That would be really nice.
Okay, well, if you're willing, then we could set up another appointment where you could come in and we could talk more about that.
I would like that. That would be great.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So observations.
First one was accusatory, and you could feel the resistance go on
Uh-huh.
immediately.
Felt backward?
Like awkward. She was like
Yeah.
so bullied into being like, okay, that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah, did you notice the body language of both the physician and the patient? I mean, she was like looking down, and the patient and the doctor was like basically like, "Come on, idiot," in her body language. So there was a lot of that going on.
And also with her body language, the client, she folded her arms towards the end
Mhm.
when she really felt like she's being attacked. She
Yeah.
just kind of closed off.
Fine, whatever. Yeah, good observation.
Speaking of smoking,
Yeah, because you got so stressed. Yeah.
Back to the doctor. Just to get back at that main doctor. I'm gonna go smoke.
Yeah. Now, I think that was very amplified in the expert approach. I don't think doctors do that. I think they know that doesn't work. Oh, you disagree?
Some of them do.
Yeah. And depending on their personality, what I do think most physicians, they may not be doing that, but they don't know how to do the other, the second demonstration we saw. So there may be like, I told them once, I'm not going to tell them again, it's their life, but they don't know the motivational interviewing tactics to do that. What I also love is all of you, now that you've been in this class, I heard the, during the first demonstration, like, why are they doing that? But let me still warn you, we all still do that to varying degrees and not so head on. But it's so easy to see that there and go, that's so ineffective, da-da-da-da. But realize, and I do this still in my own personal life, we all still have that expert approach in us where we were kind of like thinking, duh, this, and we fail to listen, okay? So what did you know, and what did you notice mostly, or what did you observe in the second demo?
They spoke more about the child's ear infection, which is, I think, the main reason why they were there.
Yeah.
And it did, the first one, it turned into smoking, smoking, smoking. And the second one, they talked about ear infections. And then it kind of was like still more there for the kid or whatever for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
That's what I think that they were there for. Yes,
yeah,
let's
because
cover
that's
the
a
kid for
pediatrician.
treatment.
That's a pediatrician. That's Aiden's doctor. That's not her doctor. But I think you brought up a really good point, because remember our 3 foundation tasks? We need a strong motivator. And that physician picked up on, okay, we have a strong motivator here. Why, she quit while she was pregnant because that child. And so that child kept getting brought up too, because that's our strong motivator as well. And the physician was very astute in saying, okay, there's a lot to harness from here. We just have some things to work out. The physician, though, and she always did reflections like she would, the pros of her still smoking, why it's hard. But then she would say, but I heard you say that you have thought about quitting, or you do know the reasons for quitting or something. So even though it was maybe brought up once or twice in the earlier conversation, she continually brought it up. So we're still moving towards our target behavior of no smoking, right? But recognize it's always done after expressing empathy for the current feeling. You can't just focus on the target behavior without also recognizing where they're currently at and what's currently difficult. Okay? Okay, so we'll just wrap things up now. Do you guys want to do more of these in 2 weeks? working on your reflective statements, or we could spend a few minutes at the beginning of class, or do you want to move on? By raise of hands, who would like to practice a little bit more at the beginning of class? Okay. Okay, so we'll...
Writing it down, it doesn't seem to flow naturally. For me, it seems to be more natural when I'm just talking and listening to someone. And I don't know why that is.
No, I think you're...
I really struggled to not parrot.
So would it be helpful if someone read the statement and you were in pairs and then you came up with something? Be more real life, you wouldn't have as much time to think. Okay, that's a great idea. We'll still use these, and one person can just read the statement, and then the other person can come up with something. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. We'll do that at the beginning of class, and then Mike, in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about self-esteem and self-efficacy and how that plays into the behavior change process. Okay?
Can
Lisa.
you list those 3 foundation tasks really quick? Because I remember when I was doing the assignment, I was stuck on one of them and I can't remember which one it was.
Okay, so it's a strong motivator. It's barriers, challenges. What is the third one? Anyone have the assignment? Barriers. I don't think I have a copy of it.
And then your ways of getting beyond the barriers. How do you say that?
Let's see. Yeah, how could you get to where you want to go?
Is that one of the 3 foundation tests? Huh.
Is that like the title of it? Like how are you going to overcome your barriers?
What's working with
Yeah.
you on this goal? Motivator, and then let's see.
Okay, so yeah, it's what's working well, your motivator, barriers, and then how can you have any thoughts on how you can move forward.
Okay.
So motivator, barrier, strategies, if you want to put in 3 words.
Can I talk to you after?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, don't forget about your assignment. It's due 1 week from yesterday. Thanks so much for your participation. Everyone have a good week and a good holiday.